welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 342 for the 10th of May, 2015. And if it's your birthday today, happy birthday. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia, with Fred the cat. Hello, Fred. That's the sound of a cat sniffing a microphone. Yeah, he's not very chatty tonight. What's coming up on this week's show? The Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson. Heidi is going to do a book review. She's going to review the book Relax, It's Just God by Wendy Thomas Russell. Now, this is a book aimed at parents everywhere about what it's like to have that conversation with your kids when they ask about God and religion. And what should the skeptical parent say? What should the skeptical parent say? Heidi reviews the book and gives some of her own insights along the way from her own experience. Really interesting stuff. Following that, it's a week in science for our good friends at the Royal Institution of Australia. Now let's all sing together. www.riaus.org.au or not. And to round off the show, it's an interview I did late last year, with James Valentine on Sydney Radio 702. Now, this was just before the National Convention last year, and James asked me about that, but also lots of really wide-ranging skeptical comments and talk and general stuff, and I take some callback questions as well. Now, for those people in Sydney, I'm pleased to say that, from right now, although it's nighttime when I'm recording this, but if you go to 2042 Cafe and Deli in King Street, Newtown, you can see some of my photography on display on the wall. And in fact, you could even buy some if you feel so inclined. That money goes to help the Skeptic Zone, or just go along for a coffee. They make wonderful hamburgers, and their eggs Benedict with salmon is really good too. Check it out. It's very exciting. First time I've had a photography exhibition. Also, I'd like to give a big shout out to our friends, the Mordi Skeptics, down there in Victoria, just south of Melbourne. If you're in that area, Google Mordi Skeptics, M-O-R-D-I, Skeptics. Oh, what a welcoming bunch they are. And they usually have a good lineup of speakers throughout the year, as do our friends in Canberra, the Canberra Skeptics. It's one of the most pleasing things about being a skeptic, I think, knowing that there are lots of like-minded people out there, not just sitting at home, but getting out there and putting on talks, inviting people, having a good time. Skeptics in the pub is a wonderful initiative, I think. Later this month, we've got Sydney Skeptic Camp. I will certainly be there to report. I hope Maynard and Joe Alabaster will be there as well. But as ever, you can just Google your local skeptics in the pub or skeptical activity wherever you are in the world. And if there's no skeptics in the pub where you are, well, why not start one? And a big shout out to our friends in Scandinavia. My goodness me, the Swedish skeptics, the Norwegian skeptics. I think pretty soon we're going to be hearing from the Finnish skeptics, although is that Scandinavia? I don't think it's quite any... Whatever. Whatever the case is, all around the world. So, but enough of that. It's time for me not to run anywhere, because right here I have my, curry and rice. Curry and rice. Lentil curry, I think. While I'm enjoying that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hi everyone. Background noises you may or may not hear this week come to you courtesy of my dogs and my children let's see how we go. This week I'm going to chat about a book I've just finished. The book was sent to Richard a few weeks ago by the author's PR person, and I put my hand up to read it and have a talk about it on the Skeptic Zone. It interested me in particular as I'm at a point as a skeptical parent at which the subject matter is becoming increasingly relevant for me. The book is titled Relax, It's Just God. How and Why to Talk to Your Kids About Religion When You're Not Religious, by Wendy Thomas Russell. Religion is somewhat of a difficult subject to tackle at the best of times in the sense that the issue generates strong opinions that can sometimes make for passionate and sometimes unpleasant dialogue amongst many people. I appreciate that there are some skeptics that are atheists, some agnostic, some who describe themselves as humanists, free thinkers, pluralists, whilst some are altogether indifferent. It's just not an important part of their lives. And of course there are others who don't really fit into any of those so-called categories. Of course there are also skeptics and scientists who have strong religious beliefs. We are a diverse bunch. My own views on religion have changed over the years, and the relevant question for me now as a skeptic, parent and atheist is how and why I should educate my children about religion, or even if I should at all. I would love some feedback from you after you hear this report about whether you agree with the author, disagree, and what your own experiences and opinions are and have been. I'll give you the contact details at the end of this report if you'd like to get in touch. Wendy Thomas Russell, the author, describes herself as, quote, science-minded non-believer, an award-winning journalist, author and secular parenting blogger, end quote. She's a former newspaper reporter and lives with her husband and daughter in California. The author begins by relating an incident with her then 5-year-old daughter in which she was driving with her in the car when the daughter piped up out of the blue, as 5-year-olds do, "Mummy, you know what? God made us." To which Mum became speechless with fear and anxiety. She describes feeling totally unprepared and unsure of how to respond. I can relate. My son also recently piped up in the back seat of the car. "Mum, you know how Ma says stuff before we eat dinner and then says Amen at the end? Is Amen something to do with the X-Men or what?" Yup, I nearly drove off the road and suddenly realised with not a small amount of guilty mother syndrome that my kids have no religious literacy whatsoever. That son, my eldest, who is 8, seems to have a naturally inquiring and sceptical mind. When I explained that Ma, Grandma, believes in God, he was quiet for a while before saying, "I don't get why adults need to have imaginary friends." I had to stifle a giggle whilst at the same time wondering how I should tackle that. I needn't have worried right then and there because he went on to ask what was for dinner, and that was the end of that, at least for the time being. 2 weekends ago, my son, who is 6, that's my other son, was looking at a piece of art at the markets depicting Jesus at the Last Supper, with cartoon characters depicted in place of the disciples. We went through who each cartoon character was with no trouble. We came to Jesus. He said in a loud voice, "He's no cartoon character. Who the hell is he?" To the somewhat amused glances of the people surrounding us. It seems I am at that point at which I can no longer ignore the issue. What this book has helped me with is how I might approach the issue in a way that will encourage critical thinking without indoctrination into any one religion, or in fact into indoctrination into my own lack of belief. The author began her mission to find out how best to deal with the issue of religious literacy after her daughter's statement in the car. She interviewed parents who were both religious and non-religious, parenting experts, religious scholars, psychologists, secular leaders, and more. The end result, she says, quote, "I wrote the book I wanted to read." The issues the book looks at are specifically how to deal with young children about your beliefs or non-beliefs in an open and truthful manner that, quote, "promotes kindness, compassion and critical thinking," end quote. How to deal with religious relatives, how to teach kids to be tolerant of others' beliefs, how to talk about death without using religious imagery for backup, and how to give kids religious literacy without boring them. In speaking with parents, Russell found 10 main challenges that parents were experiencing in discussing religion with their children. I wonder if any of these points resonate with you as they did with me, whether or not you have any religious beliefs. Number 1, indoctrination, not knowing how to be honest without indoctrinating kids into one way of thinking. Number 2, language, fear of saying something to their children that would be repeated in mixed company. Number 3, family, having to contradict religious family members while trying to keep peace in the family. Number 4, age appropriateness, not knowing what's age appropriate for children to hear. Number 5, resentment, keeping their own negative experiences or resentment out of conversations with their children. Number 6, death, facing conversations about death without the comforts of heaven or an afterlife. Number 7, tolerance, separating the idea of religious tolerance from the idea of tolerating religious hatred or abuse. Number 8, confusion, fear of confusing a child. Number 9, belief, fear that if a child hears about religion, she or he might start believing it. And number 10, religious literacy, limited knowledge of religion or religious stories. There were many other points in the book that struck a chord with me, and I'll just mention a couple. Firstly, a quote by Austin Klein, a former director of the Council for Secular Humanism. Quote, "Avoiding discussions about religion is like avoiding discussions about sex. The parent isn't made to feel uncomfortable, but the child is left on their own without rudder or guidance." End quote. He goes on to say that in some circumstances this will lead children into seeking their answers elsewhere and being vulnerable to all sorts of beliefs that may, in extreme cases, be potentially harmful. The other point that really stood out for me was the fact that it is undeniable that religion, whether or not we like it, is everywhere. It is, quote, "in our art and architecture, music and literature, plays, poetry and movies. It's steeped in our language, expression and clichés. It fills our history books and guides our politics," end quote. In not teaching our kids comparative religion, do we run the risk of doing them a disservice by possibly denying them a deeper understanding of history, philosophy, art, architecture, and the rest of the aforementioned areas of culture and aspects of everyday life? The author is supportive of parents who expose their children at an age-appropriate level to religions and beliefs, as well as non-religious philosophies of all kinds, in a manner that invites questioning, tolerance and an understanding of how religion or non-religion fits into their own culture and others. She argues that in resisting the urge to sway our children's beliefs and opinions so that they align with our own, we are empowering them by allowing them to realise that their own opinions are important and that the process by which they come to form those opinions is equally, if not more important. It is this process of critical thinking that parents can teach their kids, and in so doing trust that their kids will form their own worldviews with intelligence and a healthy dose of scepticism. She gives practical tips on how to talk to kids. For example, not to overwhelm them with information, but rather let the child take the lead and ask questions as they come up. to use opportunities in everyday life to educate and inform. For instance, if a child sees a person dressed in traditional religious attire, use that as an example to talk to the child about why they dress that way and the basis of the beliefs that lead them to do so. To recognise not only Christmas and Easter, but all religious holidays, and educate them about what they mean to those groups of people. The book is 173 pages of easy-to-read, practical and informative information for parents who are unsure of how to or how not to bring their kids up with religion. It's written in the style of one parent talking to another parent, with examples of the author's and others' experiences thrown in to illustrate some of the points made. It's useful also for those who are religious in opening up avenues of thought about religious tolerance, giving them an understanding about what secular parents may be worried about in relation to their children's religious upbringing or lack thereof, and, as is mentioned in the book, basic guidelines about how not to be a dick about the subject. I have so far avoided taking my children to a church because of an incident that occurred at my son's school during the one and only religious education session he had at his government school. He was 5 years old and came home visibly upset. I finally got it out of him that he had been told that Jesus died for his sins. Even now, 3 years later, he sometimes brings that up, still unsure of how he might have caused someone else to die, despite my efforts at reassuring him. I'm now in a position where I've realised that I want to be the one in charge of his religious education. I want to be the one to guide him and his brother in this. It's too important to ignore. It's too important to be scared of it or, heaven forbid, excuse the pun, leave it up to others to do it. It's certainly not only Christianity that I will be talking to them about. I'll tell them the good, the bad and the ugly at appropriate times. I'll educate myself more in the process about the different religions and try to be as honest with them as I can, letting their critical thinking skills develop without trying to sway them in any one direction. I need to let them see that I value their opinions, their questions, and that as their mum, I will support them throughout, except if they decide to study homeopathy. Then all bets are off. Just kidding. I'm taking baby steps, and like a toddler taking baby steps, I'm sure I'll trip up along the way and probably have the odd tantrum, hopefully not in front of the kids. I've already got Daniel Loxton's Evolution book for kids, and right alongside it is a children's book of world religions. They'll be getting the lot, including Pastafarianism. I'm sure the flying spaghetti monster will delight them as much as it has for me. So once again, if you're interested, the book is Relax, It's Just God, How and Why to Talk to Your Kids About Religion When You're Not Religious, by Wendy Thomas Russell. If you're a parent, how have you tackled the religion and kids thing? If you're not a parent, what do you think? If you're a skeptic and hold religious beliefs, what are your thoughts? If you'd like to share your own opinions and or experiences about bringing kids up with or without religion, we'd love to hear from you. Visit the Skeptic Zone podcast on Facebook and leave your comments on the thread we will post on this subject. Alternatively, the Skeptic Zone can be found on Twitter, as can I, at the Twitter handle Heidi Howdy, which is HEIDIHOWDI. Thanks everyone. Bye for now. I'm off to put a colander on my head and play with the kids.
On maynard.com.au.
Bunga bunga!
Why the inner city is even involved in making decisions about what happens in the country eludes me. Somebody said, oh yeah, but fracking gets into the water systems. Does it? Prove it. No doubt you've already got your umbrage on, you've got your chest puffed out, and you can't believe that someone would say this. The trouble with fracking is it's still going on, and it's ongoing, and the problems it's causing are yet to be clearly defined. You clearly define those and no government will be able to allow it. At the moment, there's too much wiggle room in the effects of fracking. So nail it and then win the argument. But at the moment, farmers, many of them are okay with fracking because it's keeping them alive. Thanks very much to all those people in the inner city, but start putting your thinking caps on and get out of your VW and start walking like real people.
Quickly, let's move on to something less controversial. Religion.
Uh-oh, what's going to happen now?
On maynard.com.au.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus, bringing you the science you need to know. The moon landing was faked, 9/11 was an inside job, and Barack Obama was born in Kenya. What do these things have in common? Well, they're conspiracy theories. So why do people fall for such falsehoods? We've all heard outlandish tales of aliens, the Illuminati, and lizard people. But to really be considered a conspiracy theory, the act has to be secret, planned, and performed by a group with sinister aims. The scientific method doesn't apply for conspiracy theorists, as research has found they're immune to evidence, and any facts will be twisted to fit with the conspiracy theory. No one of any age, gender, race, income, politics, education, occupation, or intelligence level is more or less likely to believe in conspiracy theories. But which conspiracy theories people believe in are more predictable. Those on the right wing tend not to trust institutions like universities, and those to the left of the spectrum are more likely to place blame on capitalist corporations. While conspiracy theories themselves are immune to evidence, the psychology behind why people believe them is not. Research has shown that conspiracy theories give people a sense of control, often much needed after disasters or traumatic events, which can cause stress, anxiety, and a loss of control. Conspiracy theorists are also more likely to experience cognitive dissonance. This is the mental discomfort of holding two conflicting views. The theories help explain how two different things could both be possible. And conspiracy theorists are prone to confirmation bias, where you tend to only notice evidence which already supports your opinion. Well, I'm pretty confident we don't have to bust out the tinfoil hats just yet, but to be on the safe side, I for one welcome our new insect overlords. And now for fast facts about conspiracy theories. The term conspiracy theory has been in use for over a century, making its first confirmed appearance in 1909. Originally a neutral term, in the wake of President John F. Kennedy's assassination, the phrase began to develop its current connotation with paranoia. The most reliable way to predict whether someone will believe in a conspiracy theory is that they believe in other conspiracy theories. One quick way to debunk a conspiracy theory is to ask, does it affect the rich and powerful? If so, it's likely just a theory. That's it for this Week in Science. For more information on conspiracy theories, go to the RiAus website, riaus.org.au. Follow us on Twitter at RiAus and like us on Facebook. I'm Casey Harrigan and we'll catch you next week.
Hi there, Ross Balch here with an Australian Skeptics National Convention update. This week we are excited to announce our final group of speakers. From the USA, we are joined by veteran skeptic campaigner Eugenie Scott. We're also pleased to welcome Theo Clark and Chrissy Wilson. Dave Hawkes will be joining our Parenting Skeptically panel, and I am pleased to introduce your host for the event, Imaginary Friend Show producer Jake Farwharton and skeptical activist and writer Chris Stevenson. Don't forget our other speakers, Brian Schmidt, Joe Nicol, Susan Gerbic, Miles Power, Lynn Kelly, Katan Joshi, Loretta Maron, John Cook, Mel Thompson, Peter Ellerton, Signa Kane, Holly Warland, and our Parenting Skeptically panel, Joe Alabaster, Lauren Cochran, and Alison Gaylord. I'll also be giving a presentation. Make sure you arrive in Brisbane early. Our Friday Skepticamp speaker roster is fully booked, with some great submissions, and the welcome event has an evening packed with entertainment. Tickets are on sale now at convention.brisbaneskeptics.org. Ensure your seat at the front row with our premium and early bird tickets. Do you want to help a student or pensioner attend the event? You can donate a half or full concession ticket. The Australian Skeptics National Convention will take place on the 16th to the 18th of October this year in Brisbane. See you there.
What should we be sceptical of at the moment? Are there particular things? Because I think there's almost like trends in things we need to be sceptical of. There's certain things. It might be, maybe at one point it was tarot card readers, then it's kind of spoon bending. Maybe now it's kind of like the kind of people that are contacting deceased relatives, although I think those are mediums have been around for a while, but there seems to be television versions of that which are perfectly popular at the moment. So you may have some ideas there of things you've noticed that we should be perhaps a little sceptical of. And then I'm also intrigued about is there a sort of level of scepticism that is a healthy level? And at some point, do you have to have a certain amount of trust and belief? Or, should you just always be sceptical? The good news is that I've got Richard Saunders, who's a life member and former president of the Australian Skeptics, to discuss these things with, as well as you. You can call 1300 222 702 if you'd like to join us. Richard Saunders, good afternoon.
Good afternoon again. It's been a long time. In fact, I was on the afternoon show 25 years ago, doing origami with you.
This is the kids' TV show. Is that what you mean? Oh, that's so funny. Were you an origami expert at that point?
I came in, there was a section called Keep It Clean or something like that, right. And you were suggesting that instead of throwing paper away, we could recycle it by turning it into origami.
Oh, gee, that was a genius idea.
It was.
Why wasn't that picked up at a national level?
I wish I knew.
That's very, very funny. Richard, lovely to talk to you again. Let's do this every 25 years.
Let's do it,
yeah. So the National Convention's on. What kind of things are on the menu there?
Everything from consumer affairs to spooky things to talking with the dead. Maybe alternative medicine certainly gets a mention in there. In fact, we're really lucky this year. We've got some of the checkout people, the chaser people coming along for a consumer affairs panel with Choice Magazine. Looking forward to that.
Yep. So your skepticism is not just, say, the paranormal or the spooky. Your skepticism, the Australian skeptics are about being well informed in all areas. Is that it?
Absolutely. I mean, at heart, the core, and the reason we really formed over 30 years ago was the paranormal. People were skeptical of the claims of the paranormal, talking to the dead, ghosts, all that sort of stuff. But over the years, it's encompassed a wide range of things, a lot to do with claims of alternative medicine, and more and more consumer affairs. I mean, if you buy a product like Choice Magazine say, if it's a shonk, then it should be called out.
When it was formed, do you think the paranormal was more vigorous in a way, or interest in the paranormal was more vigorous?
Yeah, it's never completely gone away. There are still lots of people out there who consult tarot card readers and go to astrologers or fortune tellers, or even think people can talk with the dead, and that's something that's really hard to get on top of. But we have really important issues, you might say, like the vaccine deniers, people who are encouraging parents not to vaccinate their children against deadly diseases. We find something that deserves our attention.
Right. And is that really, would you rather have a focus on that than the ghosts?
Oh, personally, I like the old-fashioned stuff. That's why it's a big organization. We've got people who can specialize.
Right.
I certainly think very strongly about the vaccination issue myself. In fact, I made a free documentary which is online called The Vaccination Chronicles, and if you Google that or YouTube that, you'll find that, all about vaccination. But at heart, I love the old-fashioned type talking to the dead and mind reading and all that sort of stuff.
Hang on, are you saying people can't do that?
I'm saying that the evidence is really crummy.
Yeah, but so... I've seen a guy do it.
Have you? Well, look. To prove that we're not just a bunch of wowsers out there to spoil everybody's day, we have a prize of $100,000 to the first person who can show us under mutually agreed fair conditions, all above board, that they can do any paranormal or supernatural claim.
So all they have to do is, turn up to the lab and move the objects around or read someone's mind or predict the fall of the cards, and there's $100,000.
Yeah, not even the lab. They can do it in the comfort of their own home as long as everyone's happy with the conditions. Mm-hmm. And you'd think after 30-plus years somebody would have collected the money by now because the tests are designed for them to pass
Right.
if they have the powers.
Right. Haven't found anyone yet?
Not yet, but the prize is there, and if somebody gets it, we'd be over the moon, because it would mean there'd be a whole new branch of science open up. There'd be Nobel Prizes involved, millions of dollars. Yeah, I think it'd be very exciting.
Richard Saunders is with us from the Australian Skeptics. You might have something that you want to suggest we should be sceptical about. You might have something that's perhaps, it is a fashionable sort of thing that we should be sceptical about. Matt's suggesting he's feeling fairly sceptical about superfoods and about the kind of claims around the ancient grains, Richard Saunders.
Yeah, I'd be quite skeptical about those too. Any fad diet, any fad news, tabloid, the latest thing, eat this product, the good things will be ironed out over the years. The best advice would be to eat a well-balanced diet, quite frankly. I don't think there are any such things as superfoods. It's the old thing. People would rather take a magic pill or what they think is a superfood than change their dietary habits and just eat healthy food and exercise more.
1300 222 702 is the number if you'd like to join us. Is there like a healthy level of skepticism? You think? Can you be too skeptical, Richard?
Yeah, but that's not. Then you stop being skeptic. You start being a believer. Once you start believing that something is the case, no matter what, that's not being a skeptic. Skeptic is somebody who's open to new evidence, but they need good proof. So I could say, I'll never believe in ghosts, end the story, go away. That's not skeptical. That's in a sense, being a believer.
Right.
So if someone can come along with convincing, credible evidence for ghosts, then I would have to change my mind. It's as simple as that.
I suppose what I mean, though, is like at some point, like if you're skeptical of every single moment, in a sense, then that's a sort of harsh way to live or something. Or, there'd be something that you'd be a hard person to be around if everything's being questioned at every possible time.
You would. I haven't met anyone like that, honestly. Yeah. I think we'd boot them out of the society, quite frankly. No, you can't live life like that. I mean, I'm talking to you on the phone. I might have sat here and think, ooh, if I touch that phone, will I get electrocuted? I'm quite skeptical. Life doesn't work like that. A lot of things you simply take as read and you get along with your life. But when a claim comes along which contradicts the known laws of nature, then your ears should prick up and you should be skeptical. You should demand good evidence before you invest your emotions or your money into it.
Why aren't you just the Australian scientists group? You know what I mean? I mean, basically, you're just scientific method all down the line, right?
Yeah, but from the early days, we've specialized in the paranormal side of things. That's the core of it. It really grew out of the 1970s when people like Uri Geller were running around bending spoons and things like that. And
do we still have? Is that sort of stuff as common as it once was?
Spoon bending? No. You ask the younger generation what spoon bending is, and they'll look at you crazy. You do it for them, they think it's a great trick, but they haven't heard about it, which goes to show that if it was real, if the people back then could really bend spoons with the power of their mind, then it would be an accepted part of our society now. What good it would do, I'm not sure.
So I was trying to think of the equivalent. Like, do we have an equivalent of spoon bending today? What does spoon bending has morphed into?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably talking to the dead. I mean, we get the hot shots coming out here from the States or whatever the case may be and claim they can actually talk to deceased people, which is a pretty far-fetched claim. They'll go on tabloid TV, morning TV, the women's magazines, the OK sort of magazines, and then they go home.
What are the tricks to that?
The tricks are many and various. You can buy books about it. It's quite an interesting study. The thumbnail sketch is you ask questions and you are fed back the information, and then you feed that information you get back to the person as if you're getting it from divine means or from beyond the grave. There's many, many subtleties to it. There are many ways, like you could say to an audience, I'm getting a strange sensation. Who is it? I'm getting a father figure here. Who's the father figure? And there's a red car. Now, a father figure could mean a father, a grandfather, an uncle, an older brother, a good friend who's older, a teacher, and so on and so forth. So they really throw out a lot of questions to the audience, and they're fed back information, and they work from there. But there are many ways to do it. Some of them use what we call hot reading, so they know a little bit about the person before they step out onto the stage, so they've got a bit of a leg up.
But it's that sort of feeding of the questions, and it doesn't, to us, it doesn't look like they're doing that, does it? I mean, what you did then, you think, well, I would see that.
People don't. It's really interesting. People don't, and people don't remember a reading, the true nature of a reading after it's happened. And though the questions I put before, I'm sensing a father figure. Can anyone relate to that? Someone will say, oh yeah, my Uncle Jim, he just passed away. When asked later, they will most probably say, that guy was amazing, he contacted my Uncle Jim, he knew about my Uncle Jim.
Right. They don't remember telling him about Uncle Jim.
Yeah. And that's, we find that a very common thing. But that's the way the human mind works. The human mind is not an MP3 recorder or an old VCR recorder. Memories are reconstructions of the past. They're not recordings.
Richard Saunders is with us from the Australian Skeptics. Yes, they're still around. And the skeptical as ever. 1300 222 702 is our number. Gordon?
G'day, James. Look, I think spoon bending's not too much of a problem. It doesn't hurt anybody. But I think the one thing that we should be really sceptical of is the notion of a continuously growing economy.
Hey, don't use... That's heresy to knock that. What are you talking about, Gordon?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the skeptics think about that one, because I think all of us should be deeply concerned, because we're... a growing economy, a continuously growing economy, is going to spoil our planet totally.
The universe is expanding, Gordon. Why not the economy?
Oh, what a wonderful notion.
Yeah.
Only I like to believe what I can see, I think in line with most of the skeptics, and I can't see the universe expanding from where I sit.
No, that's true, but you know, the scientists tell us that they are, that it are, and so therefore I would think the economy could expand forevermore to fill up that space that the universe is providing. Am I right, Richard Saunders?
It might well do that indeed, but I'm afraid that expansion is really out of our core level of expertise. It's like where the analogy would be where dentists and someone comes along with the questions about the foot. Oh, it's all very interesting, but that's not where our skepticism lies. Right. Are there ghosts involved? Is there alternative medicine? We'll leave that question for other people.
But on the notion of an ever-growing economy, is that out of your
absolutely.
Your line?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. It's fine for another day, but it's not where the Australian skeptics place their interest.
Perhaps for the economists. 1300 222 702 is our number. If you've got things that you think we should be perhaps sceptical about, perhaps you've seen people making these claims or saying things, or a notion about how sceptical we should be in actual fact. Hello there, Darren.
Good day, James. Richard. So my question is, I've sort of been listening to a few skeptics podcasts just probably for the last couple of years or so, and I'm just wondering, with Richard's long-term experience, does he find the internet, the access to the internet, answers on tap, do you think that provides as much BS as it does answers, and are people sort of like getting believing in more, woo, as they like to say? What do you think?
Yeah. What's been the effect of the internet on our scepticism, Richard?
It helps both sides, or it hinders both sides, if you want to look at it that way. It's the most marvelous resource the human society has ever known for information, but that information is a mixed bag. And as long as you approach it carefully and with a certain amount of skepticism and you're diligent, the internet is overflowing with really good information. You just have to weed out the bad information. Not always easy.
And I think if you're looking for that which will confirm your view, you will find it, and then you will say, but it's on the internet, on a very reputable site. On a reputable site, this is the information. This is scientific information.
We all do that. We all tend to look for information that confirms what we want to be true anyway. That's just part of being human.
Is it... is it a personality type to have a sceptical, questioning mind, somebody who wants the evidence, somebody who is open to change, and so therefore or is it something that is educated into us? Do we learn it? Is it part of our... If educated well, then that's how we should end up, isn't it?
Yeah, ideally. I mean, I've been in the skeptical spheres now for quite a long time, and I have met all sorts of people. You can't peg somebody and say this is a skeptical personality type. We have all sorts of people, all nationalities, both genders and other genders if they're out there, and size and shapes and creeds, and everyone, all walks of life. make skeptics around the world. So I would imagine it's access to good information.
But I think I've said that if I think of the basics of my high school education, without even worrying about university, it was scientific method, it was critical thinking in English, this kind of thing. So to me, at the end of that period, I was being told by an entire education system that I should be of a questioning mind. Why isn't everyone?
That's a good question. I think partly because it's a lot easier not to be. The default position of the human brain when you hear something is to believe it. And it takes a little bit extra effort to then start to question things. It's just easier to believe interesting things you hear and just say, oh, that must be true. I heard it on the TV or the radio, or I read it on the internet, and you don't have to think much about it.
Richard Saunders is with us from the Australian Skeptics. Martin, what did you want to raise?
Richard said he was sceptical about the anti-vaccine. I wondered where they stood with all the renewable energy. There was what has been proven now to have been an ill-founded story about wind turbine illness and things like that. So I just wondered where they stood on some of the arguments that are being given against renewable energy.
Wind turbine illnesses, perhaps in particular, Richard?
That's a very interesting one. There is no credible evidence to suggest that people get sick because of wind turbines. They might report horrible effects and feeling unwell. As far as we can see, that's more psychological, and they work themselves up to it. There's no mechanism that we know of that a wind turbine would have a very bad effect on somebody's health. Personally, I mean, the Australian skeptics don't have an official position on this sort of thing. Again, it's sort of drifting outside our realm. Personally, I'm all for it. The more renewable energy, of course, the better. And as science progresses using the skeptical method, the better we get at developing renewable energies and solar cells and things like that.
But the wind turbine illness thing is also an interesting aspect in that people of a skeptical nature will happily believe. They go, yeah, I thought so. There would be something like that. And when someone says, no, it's not actually founded, they go, yeah, but it's being covered up. It's that sort of like. But what I mean is that you can be of inquiring mind and perfectly open to things. And so it will that narrative will fit into your inquiring mind view.
Partly, it's partly a problem with the word skeptic because all sorts of people love to use it. We get people who say they're 9/11 skeptics or climate change skeptics or moon landing skeptics, and we're sitting here saying, no, don't use that word. Don't use that word. There's people are tipping more into conspiracy theorists, but the skeptic is a tricky word because it's used by a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, on the wind turbine thing, I feel like I heard the original interview with there was an American doctor, a woman, who wrote a book that was quickly debunked, and the book was based really on her own experience and her own practice. It then turned out she wasn't really even a doctor. There was very little to it at all, and I remember her being interviewed on ABC Radio. People put her on, but within a year or so, people were happily relaying the story. Oh no, there's been studies done in the US that there's wind turbine problems. These are very hard, and this is where we come back to that internet question, isn't it? The internet actually just fuels this stuff now, really.
It does, and as the ABC's Media Watch show us many times during the year, media outlets will just pick up on a story because it's sexy and hot. Fact-checking can wait for later on. This is a hot story. Let's present it now. We'll worry about the facts later.
Yeah. Paul, what did you want to ask?
That's me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Very simple question. Are all skeptics atheists?
Are all skeptics atheists, Richard Saunders?
No, in fact, we don't care. We have people in the Australian skeptics who believe in all sorts of religions. That's not a question we worry about. The skepticism, from what we're concerned with, is more about the testable claims of the paranormal or alternative medicine and this sort of thing, consumer affairs. A person's private religious beliefs is completely their own affair, and it really doesn't interfere with skepticism. A lot of skeptics would be, I would imagine, but that's just as it happens.
Would the purer skeptic position be agnosticism?
I imagine so. But again, we're starting to get into realms we leave for people who are really interested in that topic. I mean, we have the Australian atheists out there who can give you a good talking about that. Again, to us, it's a distraction. If people want to, in their private heart, want to follow a certain religion, that's entirely their business. It's entirely their business. Let's both together go on a ghost hunt. That's more fun.
Richard, nice to talk to you, and thanks for your company this morning. Good. I hope the convention goes well.
Thank you very much. People can find out about it at skeptics.com.au, and it should be a great weekend.
Richard Saunders, former president of the Australian Skeptics.
Hey, Heidi.
Oh, hi, Joe.
Hi, Heidi.
Oh, hi, Maynard.
Hi, Maynard.
Oh, hi, Joe.
Nice day in this park, yeah?
Yes, great weather.
Oh, look, a unicorn.
A unicorn? There are no such things as unicorns, silly.
Yes, there are.
No, there isn't.
Hey, ladies, what are you arguing about?
Joe thinks unicorns are real.
They so are.
Let's look this up in the Skeptic's Dictionary.
The what?
How can we do that in this park? There are no computers here.
You ladies probably don't know about the Skeptic's Dictionary app, available now for iPhone, iPad and iPod Touch in the App Store.
Yeah, we do. We've been listening to the Skeptic Zone for years, you know.
Yes, okay. The app lets you access all the great Skeptic's Dictionary articles when you're on the go. Here, let me look up unicorns.
Oh, cool. Heidi, prepare to be proven wrong.
It says here the unicorn is a creature from fables.
Aha!
Actually, I see now that someone just dumped their ice cream cone on that horse's head.
Thanks, Skeptic Dictionary iPhone app.
That's just some guy in his undies.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. And if you're coming to see my photography exhibition in Sydney, I hope you do enjoy that. 2042 Cafe and Deli. Link is on the show notes for this week's episode, although it's pretty easy to find, just south of Newtown train station on King Street. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the amazing meeting in Las Vegas in July, if you're coming along. If you are coming along and you see me, please come up and say hello. I do enjoy that. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders and Fred the Cat, who is now sound asleep, signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @Skeptic Zone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.